Hi, my name is Dan Habib. I am the director, producer, and cinematographer of Intelligent Lives.
$50 today. Are you happy?
Yeah.
You know,
Intelligent Lives is a film that looks at how we perceive intelligence as a society and tries to show that there are ways for people with disabilities to navigate education, employment, and all aspects of life living with significant disabilities. And it's only because of the civil rights movement around Americans with Disabilities Act and other laws that have changed the way we perceive people with disabilities that new doors have been opened. And the three people in the film, Micah, Nair, and Naomi, are the paradigm shifters that really show that people with disabilities can live full lives in all aspects of society.
I don't remember when I was tested, but I saw a sheet of paper in the mail that said I had a 40 IQ still, and I Googled what a 40 IQ is, and they said that somebody who can't really work out a job or can't move from their parents' house, probably things like that.
I've been doing documentary films for about a dozen years, and everything started with the film I did about my son Samuel, who's now 19 and in college and has a great social circle and has had paid employment. Samuel also uses a wheelchair and has a communication device and seizures and a lot of health challenges. Because he has those challenges, people often talk to him like he's a 5-year-old, even though he's in college and passing his classes. So that has really shown me that we have a very narrow perception for intelligence in our society. And if you don't fit the norm, which is speaking in a typical way or moving in a typical way or seeing in a typical way, people often assume you're not intelligent.
Is that the color you want? Yes or no? So yes, or is it
Yes, man.
Okay, ready? So what are we gonna do?
So this film is an exploration of the fact that there are lots of different ways to show intelligence, through art, through your social and emotional intelligence, through your work ethic. I met Chris Cooper and Mary Leon Cooper about 10 years ago, and we've just been friends over the years. Our families have been friendly because we had such a shared experience in terms of parenting a child with cerebral palsy and a significant disability. And about 5 years ago, when I started this project, I thought, I really want to tell this historical backstory to intellectual disability, and I need a great narrator.
Eugenics had the support of prominent physicians, professors, governors, presidents, and even the United States Supreme Court.
Chris was generous enough to volunteer all his time in terms of narrating that historical piece that we did a lot of research on. Marianne's a great writer. She wrote this beautiful book called Jessie, A Mother's Story. And so a lot of the way we chose to tell the story was drawn through Marianne's book and her writing. And as we started talking to Chris and working with him on the project, we realized that having him tell the personal story of being a parent of Jessie, in addition to the historical piece, could be very powerful. And so, as people will see in the film, Chris is, in a very emotional and honest way, talks about how Jessie was intelligence tested and how expectations were so low for him because of his testing, because he had a physical disability that made it difficult to really, understand his intelligence.
Jessie learned to use a computer to communicate, and he learned to read. And he developed close friendships. So Jessie became a straight-A student in high school. He wrote poetry, and he aced every one of his Latin tests. The IQ test told us nothing about my child's potential, about who he was as a person. Can any attempt to measure intelligence predict a person's value or ability to contribute meaningfully to the world?
I think Intelligent Lives reframes America because people with disabilities, and particularly people with intellectual disabilities, are the most segregated group of Americans. And I don't know how else to say it other than through giving you some stats. Only 17% of students with intellectual disability are included in regular school. Only 40% will graduate, and only 15% will be employed.
If you're talking about inclusion and you're talking about all of these things, inclusion is meaningless without empowerment. If you're not empowering marginalized groups, then your movement is toothless.
What do you remember most about today? You stuck?
Be ourselves.
Be ourselves. All right, that's powerful.
I don't think there's a group of Americans that has lower rates of inclusion and opportunities than that. So the way I hope this film reframes America is to raise expectations, is for people to see that people like Nair, Micah, Naomi, regardless of someone's IQ, regardless of their disability, they can be educated in a regular school.